Good afternoon. This is Marianne from UNA-pologetically, and I am here today to discuss the novellas we create. Now, I know some of you guys are wondering, what is a novella? We will get into that shortly, right? We just want to give people a couple minutes to get online. I'm a few minutes early, but we can do it, right? How's everybody doing today? Okay. All right, so let's talk about it. The novellas we create. So a novella is a soap opera, right? It's like those stories that we tell ourselves. Growing up, my grandmother used to always have novellas. And here, my paternal grandmother used to have us watch the soap opera, right? So all the drama, all the things, all the stories, and all the narratives that we built. But we do that too, right? Have you ever really sat back and thought about all the stories that we create for ourselves and the way that we picture and we imagine all these things going on and happening, and then it turns out it might not be that way, and then we kind of disappoint ourselves because we had this whole illusion and this whole story that we created. Those are the things that I'm talking about. What does it have to do with self-love? It has a lot to do with self-love, and we'll talk about that in a minute, right? So for anybody who is on, welcome. Thank you for joining me here today. How many of you, with maybe a show of hands or a comment saying yes, or anything like that, have had created like these stories in your head when it came to anything? It could be whatever it is, right? It could be, oh, I had this narrative in my head when I was passing by and all the work that I have done and all the accomplishments. One day I'm going to achieve this award and it's going to look like this, right? I'm going to be on stage and everybody's going to be like, oh, hey, Marianne. And everybody's going to give flowers and everybody's going to show thanks and praise. And we create all this illusion of how something's going to be. And then when we show up and we get there and it's nothing like we ever thought it was, why do we do that? Why do we create like these fantasies and things that occur, um, which is, it doesn't mean that it can't be part of real life, right? It doesn't mean that it can't happen, but a lot of times it doesn't happen. Is there something within us, if we self-reflected, that feels like we're missing something or want some type of reassurance or a show of appreciation from others or acknowledgement from other people, that we create these stories, right? I used to know somebody who said, whenever a friendship had failed, or whenever something was going on and they didn't really know what was going on in their life, they would create stories in their head to say, well, this is why it happened and how it happened, just to allow themselves to fill in the gaps so they wouldn't feel bad or feel some type of way for whatever it might have been going on, or the um, diminishing of the relationship, right? The falling out of the relationship. And sometimes I'm wondering too if we try to fill in those gaps, right? We create these novellas and these storylines just for us to fill in the gaps because we don't know. And oftentimes, if you think about ending of relationships or if you think about something that may be going on, we're trying to understand the why. Our brains are trying to fill in the gaps that we can't fill in ourselves. And sometimes when things don't make sense, we try to make sense out of it. And sometimes we will just never know. And we have a hard time accepting that things are the way they are, right? And sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. And at times we're not going to get the answer. And it's hard for us to accept that. So we create novellas. And sometimes we get really dramatic with the novellas, like, right? Depending on what the situation is, we can create a whole big novella about it, and it's all dramatized. And sometimes it might be appeasing. We might laugh about it at the end, or maybe sometimes for us it is filling, right? What do those novellas do for you? What does this have to do with self-love? Tell you what, how often have you been in a relationship and you fall in love with potential? Anybody raise a hand, comment, like? I think we've all have done that in some sort of way. Have we not? Here is the definition of potential: having or showing the capacity to become or develop into something in the future, right? When we are falling in love in our 20s, a lot of times what we are falling in love with is the potential of someone, right? This is what we think, I think you can be because I see it in you, right? Sometimes those people don't see it in themselves. And then we invest a lot of time and a lot of energy in those people, right? Whoever they are, we might be also, we either can be the potential people or we might be working towards our goal and dreams. And our hope is that the other person is also doing the same. But we're fantasizing and romanticizing this person that in present life is not who you are fantasizing them to be. This goes back to the self-love concept, right? Is knowing when enough is enough, is knowing when I can no longer fall in love or be in love with the potential versus seeing the person for who they are. It's part of us trying to control our world and the world that we are creating. And I know in particular, a lot of women don't like that word control, right? A lot of times we seem like we're controlling a lot of things that are going on, depending on your environment, your childhood, um, or just simply the fact that we supposedly tend to be better multitaskers, right? That we are oftentimes in control of the things that are going on. So why wouldn't it be that I want to also appear to control your who you are as a person, that I know you can do this, so I'm going to support you heavy because I know you can do that. And what we fail to do at times is give the person credit for who they are now and see them for who they are now. And sometimes we may or may not like who that person is if they were like that forever. I don't know if this is resonating with anybody at all at this moment. A lot of times, that is, a couple weeks ago I talked about the grief associated with self-love. Part of that is the grief, is knowing that, man, I've spent a lot of time creating this novella about who you are and therefore who I wanted us to be together, and you may not be actually part of that equation. You may not be able to fulfill that novella that I had, and therefore I might be disappointed by it, because there's oftentimes a lot of people who are left with that grief down the road and disappointment and feeling like I invested so much time, and where is the growth? Where I thought you would be at this time? And the reality is that you thought they would be there. They may have known all along that they couldn't live up to your standards or whatever that is, or maybe they're actually okay with who they are and what they're doing, and they didn't see any other way or any other life. That is what you wanted for them. Allow yourself to slowly let go of those novellas. Start seeing people and accepting them for who they are and what they're representing and what they're giving out, right? Is it harder to do that in your early 20s? Absolutely. Because in your early 20s, what you're doing and what you're feeling like you're doing is, especially if you're in a relationship, you're building up with someone. So it's hard not to see the potential of what the person has, right? People might have their goals, people might have their dreams, and some people don't. But if they're telling you, I don't really have a goal or a dream, then you need to think about that. Because oftentimes what we try to do is also fix that. And we might say, well, here's some things you can do. This. I think you'd be really good at this. We are starting to create and formulate a person that is not there. People have to find their own dreams, their own goals. oftentimes we try to support that, but our support might look like overdoing or fictionalizing it so it fits your novella. It shouldn't fit your novella, because how can two people be happy if I'm just living off of your novella and not ours together that we are creating? This is about self-love. This is about knowing that in reality, we have to start accepting people for who they are. And as we have to start accepting ourselves for who we are, what we do, and what we want out of life. And sometimes our partners may not be it. And sometimes they are. And then you go with it. You can fulfill your novella dream if that's what it is, but it won't be created in this fantasy world versus based on reality, right? Ask yourself a couple questions. Why do you create these novellas in your head? Does it have to do with trying to have a portion of control in your life, or the things that you cannot control, right? So the things that you cannot control, are you trying to fill these novellas in so that way you can feel like you have some sort of control? Or does it make you feel somewhat good to have these novellas in? Sometimes they're not all bad, right? Some of these novellas are actually quite entertaining. I've had a few novellas in my head that I'm just like, oh, that was a good one, right? But then I also know that it may not be reality based. It just might be something fun to do or to think about, right? Because our mind kind of wanders and it does what it's going to do. But you also want to bring it back and say, hey, I have to stay grounded here somehow, right? Is the potential partner, when we're talking about potential or novellas, right? Are you creating a story about your partner that does not exist? Or are you going based upon what's real and what that person is giving you, right? If that person is saying, I have this goal and I have this dream, great. How can I be of support? Support looks differently than doing, right? I'm not going to do XYZ for you because that's something you got to do, but I can support you to say if there's extra things that you might need help on, I can do that, right? But oftentimes when other people might have goals and dreams, what you also want to do is sit back and observe to see what they are actually doing to obtain those goals and dreams. Because I think a lot of times too, that's where the potential comes from. And that's where we build up on the novellas, is saying, yes, my partner is going to do this and do this because that's what they said their goal and dream is. But it's been 3 to 4 years and you haven't put a business plan together, or you haven't done these steps or any steps to work towards those goals and dreams. So what are we doing here, right? What's really going on? Is this a dream you're trying to sell me and therefore I'm hyping it up in my head, knowing I just have to be there to support you, right? Or is it something that they're having difficulties with, that they really don't see that in themselves, and maybe they're thinking they don't have the self-love within them. They don't have the courage or the motivation to actually fulfill their dreams. Fear holds back a lot of people from those things. But are you going to be that person that's always going to constantly be building something up and then feel disappointed afterwards? You can have the novellas and as well learn that some of these things are fictionalized. Try to be more reality based about what's going on, because I've seen relationships go on for a very long time based upon this potential. And oftentimes people are disappointed 5, 10, 15 years later that that potential is not about potential. It's just the person wasn't the right fit for you. And that is okay. Love yourself to know the difference between the two so that you don't get wrapped up and sucked into these novellas that you've created and that you're hoping to have, come true and come to fruition when it may not be possible, even for yourself. for you, if you are creating a novela for yourself and it scares you each and every time you're trying to take that next step, you have to start asking yourself, what do I need to do here to either fulfill that next step or realize this isn't what I'm striving for in life here? Or am I doing this to please myself? Am I doing this for reassurance somehow? If I am dreaming of being captivated by an audience somewhere, right, on an Oprah Winfrey show, and I'm dreaming about those things, what do I feel like I need or I want from that novela? Sometimes these things have some messages that we just need to dig a little deep down inside to discover, even with ourselves, what do we want here? And again, that's okay. But just know and reflect a little bit upon on what it is that you're looking for when it comes to these novellas. Is it just for fun? Or is it that you're looking for something a little bit deeper than that? I hope today provided you some insight on novellas that we create, as well as how it impacts or has to do with self-love. You know, self love is a big topic. It's so broad and there's so many things that we can cover. So if there's anything else that you would like for us to cover and discuss and talk about, let me know. I'm free to have that conversation. I'm free to bring it up and discuss it and, continue this conversation because it's very important. So thank you all for joining me here today. This is Marianne from UNA-pologetically, and I will see you all in 2 weeks.